there's this thing I got to do, and I'm not sure what it is, but I need to be a difference in the world. Long story short, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. But it was at that moment that usually when people like freak out, instead of freaking out, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is this is it. This is the opportunity to be a difference in the world. And I thought, I'm going to set my acting career aside. I'm going to pick up a camera. I'm going to document healing myself naturally and finding the cure.
Lourdes Lavoy had already built a successful career as a model and an actress, with one of her most notable roles in the CBS series Without a Trace. She had achieved the dream that many aspire to, yet something was missing, a deeper sense of purpose that she couldn't quite define. But that purpose became clear the moment Lourdes was diagnosed with cancer. And in that moment, she discovered her true calling to change the conversation surrounding cancer and health. Guided by her faith and a newfound sense of purpose, Lourdes not only overcame her battle with cancer, but also she became a trailblazer, transforming her journey into a mission to help others. Her story is a powerful testament to resilience, faith, and the extraordinary power of discovering your purpose, even in the face of life's toughest trials. Well, welcome to this episode of the Peaceful Presence podcast. I'm excited for you to meet my guest today, Lourdes Lavoy. I'm honored to have you with me today and to share with those listening your story and really your incredible, brave, and courageous testimony. I first learned about you through my sister, who also battled late-stage cancer. But the truth is, I think that anyone who is diagnosed with cancer, especially in its late stages, you'll probably agree, it feels like this race against the clock, trying to decipher, what's the best plan or what's the best treatment and how much time is left to maybe make those choices and see how they play out. And what really stood out to me about your journey is not just obviously the physical healing, but also the spiritual part of it. And I'm excited for you to share about those experiences and the messages that you received from God during what I think would be your toughest trial. And I trust that it's going to touch some hearts listening today. So maybe you could just start with telling us a little bit about yourself and your background before the cancer.
Sure. Okay. So actually, before cancer, it was I was into the entertainment business. So I started off as a teenager as a model. Then from there, I got introduced to talent managers into acting. So then I thought, oh, I love acting. I've always done that. When it comes to being a kid, I was just always pretending. So I got into that, moved to Hollywood from Chicago. So came out here because I did a film out in Chicago where everybody was actually from California. I was the only Chicago actress at the time, even though I lived in the suburbs, but you're still considered a Chicago actress. And it was the producers there that said I should move to California if I wanted to pursue my career further other than national commercials. And at first I was like, oh, no, I'm not leaving Illinois. But I eventually did. And from there, I saw so many people trying to make it in Hollywood. Met many people, but as luck had it, it was like things kept falling into place for me. So I was taking this acting course and just trying to keep busy. It was like hard to find agents, try to get an audition. Well, in Chicago, it was just like easy. I was constantly being called. I had an agent. I landed every role I auditioned for. And here I'm here competing with all these people. And we were doing this class, and I thought my what you call partner in the audition class was like, hey, let's stop and like get something. And I'm like, I wasn't a drinker, so and it was like really next door to our class. So he had his drink or whatever, but I was like, nope, don't drink. You do your thing. And Cuba Gooding Jr. was there, and he accidentally stepped on my foot like 3 different times. Every time we talked to him back, and he was like, he's very animated. So he's like, oh, I'm sorry. So on the third one, he's like, let me get you a drink. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't drink. But I didn't want to come off like I'm a prude, So I was like, sure. And I'm just thinking, ugh. So I took the shot and I felt really tipsy. And I thought, oh, wow. So I told the guy, I was like, I got to go to class and I'm really feeling this. And so he's like, oh, what class? I said, oh, acting. So he came with us. So we walk in our acting class with Cuba Gooding Jr., an Oscar winner, right? And that the coach was just like, okay. And I said, when I walked up to her, and I said, and I'm sure she smelled the I was really bad.
Alcohol.
I said, do you think I could go first so that, and he's sure, and she's laughing. And I did the whole performance. We left, and then that's when, and I was already thinking of coming back home. So this is how odd things always fall into place. I was thinking about coming back home. I was going to leave that week back to Chicago. And then Cuba said, you really got what it takes. You should stick it out. So I'm like, okay. So I stuck it out, landed another film, stuck it out, got into this huge thing where eventually I was competing against like 800 other people that were auditioning for this role to be into like 20 people that were going to get picked. And I got picked. And from there, I ended up landing the role on Without a Trace. Got put on the ballots to be considered to be a nominee for an Emmy. Got a holding deal with CBS. Like everything just started going boom, 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 boom.
Sure.
Meanwhile, I kept having, because I love humanity. I love people. That's always been my thing, right? I can't explain it. Whatever that is, that's who I am. People might find it odd, but that's, I'm okay with odd. And so I kept telling my husband, I said, like there's this thing I got to do, and I'm not sure what it is, but I need to be a difference in the world. And he kept saying, well, you're doing it, because there was a time where I was like homeless, sleeping in a car. And so he's going, you went from that to, now you're succeeding. I'm like, that just feels hollow, like it's, no meat to that. And I said, no, it feels like it's a lot deeper than that. And so for 3 years, I kept having this nagging feeling that there was more that I needed to be doing. And during that time, things would show up. Like if I was around someone who had a cold, the next day I was like so sick. Not like I had a cold, I was like dying. I was always extreme. And at that time, I really didn't understand the body and how, if your immune system is compromised, how you easily get sick, how these are all these signs letting you know that you need to kind of address that. And for me, it was like my eating habits were poor. I ate everything sugar, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, sugar, 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 brownies, ice cream, you name it. It was sweet. I ate it. I didn't have a problem with it because I didn't gain weight. Because at the time I had the concept weight had to do with health. Not at all. It's what you eat is what has to do with health. But I eventually ended up with like, lumps and tumors and stuff that were showing up. And I finally got, long story short, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. But it was at that moment that usually when people like freak out, instead of freaking out, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the opportunity to be a difference in the world. And I thought, I'm going to set my acting career aside. I'm going to pick up a camera. I'm going to document healing myself naturally and finding the cure. And that's where it all started.
Interesting how you just knew that at that time,
Yeah.
Like you said, at a time where most people are devastated by some news, that it ignited something inside of you, it sounds like.
Yes, it was like not even a doubt. I just knew that's it. That this is the thing I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go there. So you get diagnosed with cancer, and it was late stage at that time?
It was close to late stage. It got more late stage, more with what happened afterwards. So I was at stage 3. There's 4 stages. I was at stage 3. So, and with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is cancer in the lymphatic system, they don't really have a stage. But if they were to stage it where I was at, it was stage 3. I think they said like 3B or something like that. So it was next step is 4. And so they immediately like, okay, so this is what we're going to do. And they're just telling me, right? We're going to do this, and you're going to go see this doctor, and then they're going to put a report. Like they're not asking you. They're not like really informing you. It's more like they're scaring you to, you got to do this, and it's got to be quick. And oh my gosh, cancer, it's going to kill you. And as they were telling me that, as the doctor was telling me that, it was interesting because I was in my head thinking, okay, this is what I have to be doing. So I'm going to I'm going to figure this out. I'm not going to do chemotherapy, radiation. So they're just, she's just going on and on and on. And I think because I wouldn't respond to what she just said, right? she finally just like, so what do you think about what I just told you?
Right.
And I said, I think it sucks, was my answer. And then I cried. And it was like, because of that pause, it brought like so many emotions. But it wasn't fear. It was more like, I'm going to be on a journey, and
Yeah.
okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, God. So let's do it. And then I called my husband and told him what happened. I cried again. And he was, quiet. And I said, I'm not going to do chemotherapy or radiation. I'm going to pick up a camera. I'm going to document this. I'm going to find a way to do this naturally. And I just, and he's going, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean you're going to do this? And so he was not happy at all. He's like, you got to do this. This is what doctors have been, doing. And I'm like, no, because if this was the cure, why are they searching? Why are people donating, looking for the cure? If that's the cure, if this
Yeah.
is
That's a
if
good
this
point.
fixes it, right? And people are good with this, why are we still looking? That's it. So
Hmm.
I was just like, no, that doesn't make sense to me. Like a lot of stuff just came to me and said, if this was it, they wouldn't be having people do these walks and runs to raise money to find a cure if that's the cure. They wouldn't tell you to poison your body back to health because that made no sense. They wouldn't have
Yeah.
you radiate yourself back to health because I'm going to do something that's a cancer causer to get rid of cancer. Like just a lot of stuff didn't match. And so
Yeah.
I started just trusting God, going with my feeling and my intuition because I knew He was going to guide me. And I started reading book after book after book. Found lots of people who fought cancer, who were terminal, who turned it around, who did none of the conventional treatments. I mean, just like I can't begin to tell you the amount of people I met, the books I've read. I read like 100 books. I
Hmm.
couldn't sleep, so my night was just reading book after book after book, trying all these different types of treatments. And I say treatments because that's to me is a real treatment. Something you go to nature and it's natural, and you're putting in and you're checking it out, see how it works on you. That to me is a treatment. Something that goes in and causes all these side effects and destruction to your cells. To me, that's not a treatment. To me, that's more of destruction, right? You're
Yeah.
causing more problems than you need. So I just started kind of going with that. And I mean, I learned, oh my gosh, like one with
Mm.
the cottage cheese and flaxseed oil that you had to make it into a powder. And then you kind of just, so it was, and then you had to make it, you had to like blend it until it was like nothing, like it's really smooth because it caught like certain compounds in that they noticed, this one scientist, and I was reading all these, things that kind of got covered later, but how it attacked cancer, but not the
Yeah.
cells, just the cancer. I learned about which I thought was gross, um, was it the baking soda one? That you put a little bit,
Hmm.
very little of maple syrup,
Funny
and
ear.
water.
Yep.
And I was like, it was so hard for me to do that one. So I'm like, there's way too many things out there for me to settle on one that I just can't get myself to do because it's just disgusting. But I know
Did you
people that have
feel
done it.
did you feel overwhelmed? There's just so much information and did you feel overwhelmed and were you in pain during all of this too? Because I know pain kind of takes a different component with things.
No, I didn't. I only had pain um, after they had done this test that they had. So during the time, I didn't have any pain. Actually,
Okay.
I had no pain. I Most people do feel overwhelmed because it's so much information, and then you get all these contradicting information. But I understood, and I still do. If the internet, if the people that run and control what you get to know are saying this is bad, for me, I got, okay, this is good. I need to do that. Someone said it was good, and everybody else over here that has to do with conventional saying this is terrible. This could cause this, this, and this. I'm like, okay, I need to do this. So
Mhm.
that's how it helped me. So I knew that if the pharmaceutical company or any doctors that were conventional, anything conventional that went against something that someone else did that was natural and helped them, and they spoke against it, I knew that's the one I needed to try. And that's how it guided me. I didn't feel overwhelmed because I was taking it on, because I
Yeah.
already, mentally knew this is what I need to do. I'm going to do these things. I'm going to get better. God's going to guide me through this thing. And with God, there's no way you're going to fail. and I'll meet the right people at the right time and things will work out. And that's exactly what happened. So I finally was almost done with cancer. And, I did like all this whole diet, the juicing, very specific juices and combinations. And, and coffee enemas. I did like 4 of them a day. I did colonics once a week at home because I bought the whole kit. So I was always cleansing and nourishing, cleansing and nourishing. So all the junk that shouldn't be there was coming out. And I was bringing back in all the prebiotics, probiotics, enzymes, nutrients, phytonutrients, like the whole thing my body needed. So I understood if I'm getting out everything and I'm giving it everything it needed, it was going to heal. And I did. I saw the healing like rapidly. And then I was reading this book and I learned that a PET scan, which is radioactive sugar, even though it shows them specifically where the cancers are and is very specific, it also makes it grow because that's how they know it's cancer. So you can have a tumor, but it might be benign.
Right.
So for them to figure out if it's benign or malignant, what they do is radioactive. We all know radioactive is very cancer causing. So for someone who has cancer, right, it's going to make it worse. Then they have sugar to it. So now you got radioactive sugar. Well, cancer thrives on sugar. So for them, when they inject you with this thing, what happens is it goes in. If it's malignant, it's what they call a hotspot. They see activity, right? It's taking it in, there's growth. And they go, okay, that's a cancer. If it's not doing anything, that's a benign tumor. It's nothing. And that's how they can tell the difference. But I felt because they already knew I had cancer, why do they give these things to people? We're going to stage you knowing what it does. Just get rid of it. Do the things you need to do to heal. Instead, they do all these other things that make things, create more inflammation, more growth, more problems. And now you're putting in more things that are more toxic that people end up in a really bad situation. So after I learned that, I'm like, I'm almost done with cancer. I mean, I could hardly feel anything anymore. And I thought, well, let me do this test. I'll document it. And so I figure if I can document this, I can show people this is where my cancer was. Right. Now look where it's at. And now look how it spread after that because I did this test. So, of course, my husband was against it. He's like, almost done, just get over this thing. But
so did you go into it prepared that this is going to potentially spread it and I'm going to show it?
Oh, yeah.
You did. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
With all the research I did, I knew that it was definitely going to spread it.
But you probably figured you could conquer it again.
Right. Because I figured I'm already conquering it, so I know what to do. So
right. Okay.
Because I wanted to be that guinea pig. I wanted to show you I have cancer. They did a PT CAT scan. It's almost gone. But look at after the PET scan, look how it spread. So, so that people understand that when you do this, you need to know, are you willing to go through that? Or do you just rather get rid of the cancer, be done with it? Mm-hmm. Go get a blood test. And they always say, oh, but certain cancers, you can't tell, in your blood work if there's cancer, which in my opinion, that's not true. If you have cancer in your body, it does show in your blood, regardless of what type. It's like they said, my type, you couldn't find cancer. I went to a health expo, and a doctor there that did all these kind of natural things did the test on my finger with the blood underneath the microscope, and it showed that I had cancer. And so, and I already knew at the time, so right. But the thing was, they were telling me that my type of cancer, you had to biopsy it because Hodgkin's lymphoma, you just can't do it through blood. Yet I went to this health expo, and through the blood under the microscope, the guy knew I had cancer. So I understood, yeah, you can. There's a lot of stuff to be known. It's just that we're not taught these things. So for me, I went in there knowing it was going to spread it, but this is where it gets complicated. I walked in there because I shared a lot. I daily shared on social media at that time, and we're talking, this was 2010, so 14 years ago. I didn't know what I know now on the censor, how many people watch, things are being always monitored. And the big thing, and people can call that, conspiracy theory. You can call it whatever you choose, whatever you've fallen into the clique of, their control. Not my problem. I'm here to share the facts, my experience. When I went in there, they knew I was doing a documentary. there would have been no way they know I'm doing a documentary unless they've seen my stuff on social media. And it's not, and there's millions and millions of people all around the world. You at this place I'm going to happen to know and watch my stuff there. And that's just a little too convenient. So they knew I was doing it. I, of course, kept denying it. I said, no. And I even was recording. I said, this is just a camera. I lied. But I recorded the whole thing. I said, just taking pictures for my family that's out in Chicago. And when I went into the room, they had two types of shots. When you do a PET scan, it's just one. It's regular size, nothing major. But they came in first with this metal-like box. It looked futuristic. It was weird. They open it up. He takes it out, and it's like huge with like all these different little holes. Like it's just different. And so I was joking and like, oh, this looks like, something in the future and stuff. And of course, he's still like straight face. I'm like, okay. And then he proceeded to inject me. Once he was done injecting me with that one, he deleted all my information that he injected me with off the screen, which I thought was odd. He explained to me that they sent the information to people that need to know. This is just so that in case other hospitals hack, that they don't see what they do. And I'm like, well, that really makes no sense because all hospitals, their scans would be the same, right? So then after he was done deleting all that, after he put all the information in, sent, and then deleted, he then brought in the actual PET scan shot. So with the first one, instantly I could feel growth all through my body. Like it felt like bubbles. It was really gross. It felt like just tumors just popping everywhere. Then he gave me the second one, which was the PET scan. I waited like 45 minutes or whatever, went into the thing. After that scan, no matter what I did, I couldn't get it to change. I couldn't undo it. So the things that were helping me shrink the cancer before, none of it was working. And by the end of the week, I had cancer throughout my body. I got down to like 70 pounds. I had like a tumor sticking out of my armpit, looked like a baby head. I had tumor, like just everywhere. It was all throughout my body. And this is within a week after this test. I had 5% use of one lung. I could barely breathe. I felt like I was breathing out of a straw. My heart had to be restarted a couple times because it was off the charts. And so they had to stop it and restart it. I had fluid built around my lungs causing all this pressure. There was like all these things started happening after this, unusual extra shot that I don't know what it is. I couldn't tell you because it's not in my records anymore. Right. So I kept trying to
Did you ever ask the doctor? Did you ever ask?
Oh no, they're just like no, they won't acknowledge anything. It was a very weird thing. But through all that, I look at it now and I see that for me, God allowed those things to happen so that I can get to the point where I got, so that I can then speak to that. I can then show people that even if you have days left to live like I had, it doesn't mean it's the end. It doesn't mean that just because you have cancer throughout your body and you're barely breathing, that you can't turn it around. And I believe that's why it was allowed, because I got to that point where here I got days left to live, 5% use of one lung, barely breathing, cancer throughout. No matter what I did, I couldn't change it. And, then it was just like, I'm here, I'm praying, I need something. And then a friend calls me, tells me about this doctor who lives in California, but has a clinic in Mexico, and they do everything naturally. And it was his herbs that he specifically had that was going to help me undo the stuff they put in my body to help turn this thing around within 3 weeks. So it's exactly what happened. So here I am dying. They're telling me here at the hospital, they could give me some stuff, some treatments just to like extend my life. But, and I'm just like, I'm not doing this stuff. And one doctor came and said, well, look, whatever you're going to do, then you need to do it now because you don't have any more time. And so I'm like, I know, and I'm crying. I'm like, but I just can't, because I had an issue with my family because they hated the fact that I was doing something naturally. They wanted me to do it conventionally. It was that kind of thing. And I didn't want them to know how bad I got because they'll assume, because I didn't do the treatments, and wouldn't know the full story of the cancer was almost gone. The only thing that they did is this, they gave me this extra shot that made it go everywhere. They don't know this information. So to me, it's like, nope, I'm not going to deal with this. I need to be positive. And right now they'll be freaking out. And I need the energy to be right. I need everybody to know I'm going to be fine. And that's where I stood until a friend of mine, and this is why I say God is so good. He knew that as much as I was trying to keep my family away, that this was the time that my family needed to step in. And so one of my friends behind my back reached out to my family and said, look, it's best that you just go along, do what she wants, because you're going to regret it if she dies. And then he told her, my sister, and then she told the rest, that I only had days left to live. And, and then that's when they all stepped up. And they did fundraisers and everything. And within that week, I was, my mom had 10 grand she was saving and stuff. So it was just boom, boom, boom. Got there, started doing all the payments, got into this place. And within 3 weeks, I had no cancer. But I did have an opening in the chest cavity. And even there, they were like, well, you have to, as much as you don't want to do chemotherapy, 3 light doses will scar the chest cavity and you'll stop drowning from the inside out. And I really didn't want to do that. So I'm like, no, it causes cancer and it's damaging, right? And I kept fighting it. And meanwhile, I have this tube that's in my chest pumping out all the fluid because I had an opening. So I was drowning from the inside out. And so it got to a point where when we got back, we just had to go, okay, we can't tell them that the cancer's gone. We can't afford to pay them anymore to do the treatments over here. And now additionally chemo to start, because they're going to do a light dose. Because they said that's all you need is 3 light doses and that'll scar it. Because that's how chemo does. When you get chemo, it scars your organs, which is not good. But in my situation, it would be good. I needed the scarring. So we got to a point where my husband was like, well, my insurance covers it. We'll just go back to the U.S. And we just want to tell them that it's gone. All they know is you were dying, and so we'll do the treatments, right? And so we kept it a secret, and the first few days I just couldn't get mentally, I couldn't get myself to do it. I'm like, I do not want to do this treatment. And
you had come so far without, having to use any of that. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. But I think it was a lesson to show that there are things that Big Pharma does have that is not something you should do to get rid of something or to heal. But if there's an emergency, you should use it for that thing and then clean it out and then clean that stuff out you've sealed off, right? So it's I think it was a lesson I need to learn because I despise them. And so I needed to understand that if something shows up, because I always stood, it's like, yeah, if you get an accident, you need surgery, the guts are open. You want to close that up. You want anesthesia. Right. So I felt it that way. But it was like, oh, okay, got it. It's very damaging, but I need that damage for right now. Just to seal it. Not a permanent thing. It was just to be 3 things. And interestingly enough, I was like, I have to do this. And I got to a point where I couldn't breathe anymore. Like it was, the fluid started building back up. And I had to sit up to sleep. So we would sit on the couch and my husband would lean against me like this. So that's how we slept. Poor guy. And I know I don't remember. I mean, he finally told me what the movie was, but we picked a movie. We were watching the movie just so that we decided, okay, tomorrow morning we'll go and we'll tell them we're going to do the treatments. And so, I don't remember. He told me about the movie. I still don't remember it again. I forgot it, but it's some movie that we watched and I later wanted to know and see it. But if I remember it, I'll tell you what it was. Okay. So we watched night going to day and, it was really, I didn't even know if I was going to make it, but we got to the hospital. They did what they call thoracentesis. They removed a lot of the fluid. They did a few of those and it's when they did the chemo because the chemo that they were going to give me was really strong. So you have to understand, It's not like I could say, hey, the doctor said I only need like 3 light doses.
Yeah. How did you get around that part?
Right. So I just had to let them give me what they were going to give me. I couldn't tell
Okay.
them, according to all my records in Mexico, I have cancer. I just need that. I was like, I didn't trust anymore. I got clear
Yeah.
that just go along, let them do the thing. And so because it was strong, it did shut down my body and I did go into a coma.
Mm.
And so that was like, but I had the greatest experience in that coma. And it was like, I got to see, so I thought, while I was in California, I thought I was in some Asian country, that I was being pumped with all these herbs and was healing. And, God was just guiding me and showing me all these amazing things. There's even, when I was in Mexico, I had a conversation with one of the angels that sent. And it was like I spoke to one, and then it was like, and then I spoke to Jesus, and then showing me all these things. And it was in those conversations, and I'll send you the link, where I was being told like all these things I needed to understand. I don't remember a lot of it, but
Yeah.
I noticed that when something comes up, I know. And
Yeah.
so I kind of go back to that. It's like, okay, those must have been things that I was told. But I was told that I wasn't going to die, that I was going to live, and that I was going to help a lot of people. And so,
Hmm.
and it was going to be through my experience. So even though I could feel the death, and it's, who knew you could feel death, right? But when I had those days left to live and barely breathing, I definitely felt death. I knew that it wasn't going to take me because I was already told I was going to make it through. And so it was
Yeah.
through these crazy things, being in the coma, seeing the herbs being pumped in, understanding that that's what was going on, even though it was like, so there's more to what meets our eyes, right? The fact that I was in California and simultaneously I was in another place, showing that I was in this Asian place. And here in California, they're pumping me with this junk, right? Like different, even when they give you the IVs, it's just junk. It's all
Okay.
synthetic, right? Which is what makes you swell up. But in my other experience, simultaneously, I'm being pumped to stay healthy with herbs. So
Yeah.
I was clear that that's what was going on, that while they were doing this to sustain my body, God had me being taken care of already. And so even when I woke up, in fact, I had like, I don't know how many doctors. I don't remember none of them. But they would come in and it's like, you probably don't remember me. I'm thinking, you got that one right. I no clue, right? But when you're going to be released from the hospital, all the doctors have to come in and release you, each one at a time.
Hmm.
And so each one told, and then one came in and said, I got to tell you, I didn't think you were going to leave out of here alive, but it's nice to tell you that you get to go home. And so I'm
Oh,
like, yeah, okay.
love
And of course, my husband's like, why would they tell you that? That's terrible. I said, I'm glad he did, because it made it clear to me what they saw was, this person's going to die. There's just no way. And that's telling me that the whole time God was protecting me, pumping me with these things that I was receiving, even though they couldn't see that that's what I was receiving. It's
what do you think that was? I mean, do you feel like, they were doing this in this physical realm, but something else was being, given to you spiritually?
yep, 100%,
And yeah.
100%. And I think it's, yeah. Go ahead.
I had this other guest just recently, and she had an experience. It sounds kind of similar where, she was in the presence of Jesus, and wasn't that she came back not remembering everything, but it was like these things were downloaded into her. And then later on, you just kind of knew things. And it sounds like it was something similar with you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like since then, it's like sometimes somebody will come to me because I help a lot of people around,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll tell me specific things they're dealing with. And as they're talking, I instantly know, you need vitamin E, you need about 1,000 milligrams, and this is why. And and it's just, it pops in. Or
Yeah.
they'll tell me something else, and it just, I don't know why, but I'm clear that it's all the downloads that I was given, um, because God wanted me to go through this experience, to get to the other side, to be able to help others. And it's been that. It's like, even now, like several years ago, many years ago, I had a really, like every night about 3 in the morning, I end up with this pulsing headache. I just felt like in one spot, like I wanted to pop. And so I'm like, why is it only doing it at night? And why is it, so I just prayed and I said, what do I need to fix this? And
Mhm.
instantly it was like, get up, take vitamin E. Now, I had vitamin E. It could have been they asked me to get up and take something I didn't have, but it was exactly what I needed. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
I got up, took it, and within 15 minutes, it went away. I never had the problem again.
Wow.
So I was like, why did it fix that? So, because I need to understand the biology of it all. It's my thing. I love that. So I typed in, I'm like, what does vitamin E do? Right. And then it goes into your vascular and how it keeps it kind of open and it gets things moving, which makes sense because that's why they tell somebody who's on blood thinners, oh, if you're on blood thinners, don't take, turmeric or don't
Mm.
take vitamin E because it thins your blood. And you're thinking, so then why don't you give me that to thin my blood?
Right.
Why you give me
Right.
something synthetic that can cause problems while this won't? So
Right.
there's a lot of stuff that you just, and so I started understanding every time something came up, I would always go and search why. And it always has something to do with that. And it's, even now, you keep, I'm constantly learning and I enjoy it. And anytime I get more information, more downloads by God, on what things that He has provided us with and what we need, I'm always like, okay. Some people are like, well, that's a lot of supplements, that's this, and I just rather just eat healthy and stuff. And I said, well, this is how I look at it, right? We can go to the doctors and take their synthetic stuff with all these long list of, problems, or we can use God's pharmacy that, of all people, right? If we're going to follow something, why not follow the one that created us, that brought us from dust, right? We were created from dirt, from dust. So
Mhm.
why wouldn't we get things from there that grow
Right.
from there to get it right from the person that would know, or I would say from God who would know? So it's like if we want to rely on our food, and we should, regardless of the supplements we take, we still do need to eat healthy. We still need to eat clean. But doesn't mean that when we're eating clean, that it's got all the vitamins and minerals and nutrients with our depleted soil. That's the whole
Mhm.
purpose of supplement. You want to eat clean, but because that apple isn't going to give you the same amount of nutrients that it did 150 years ago, because we've sprayed it to death, we've destroyed our soil. And
Right.
until they undo that, and I believe they can, I think when they stop all those pesticides and start farming the right way and have different things so that it all counteracts so bugs don't eat them up, right? When you do things the way it's supposed to in nature, then the soil can go back to the way it used to be. Because right
Mm.
now, if you ate one apple, to get the same equivalent of what you ate 150 years ago on an apple, you would have to eat a whole bag of apples to get the equivalent of one apple back then.
Interesting.
So it's the purpose. You wouldn't be able to eat enough. You'd be stuffed. So
Yeah.
the only way to do it is to supplement, but get high quality supplements. I'm always investigating what supplements work, what don't, because there's a lot of fillers. There's a lot of, they might have got it from when it was genetically modified or it's been sprayed, right? So you got to get pure supplements, and there's every kind out there. So, excuse me, I have every kind you can think of from different companies and stuff because I know that that one does this one right. I know because I tested it. I always vet things before I ever tell anybody. But that's what I
Right.
understood. So when people go, I don't want to take supplements, and well, do you plan on eating a bag of apples for
Mhm.
that to equivalent that one apple? Are you willing to eat several things of celery? You could. Your stomach isn't big enough. So, and that's why. So, if you want to, until things get changed, I tell people you should supplement. You should eat clean. You should do. Investigate what if you have an issue, what out in nature addresses that, and take that. Or eat that, or drink that.
What do you say? Because I know you're a big advocate of eating clean and healthy, and that's really the way that I think we all would like to be. But eating's fun, and I speak for me, it's kind of fun to go out to dinner and, so how do you personally balance that? Or maybe you don't, maybe you just completely love eating clean. I wish I was like that.
I do love eating clean, but I think it's because in order to make something taste good, you have to put all things together. right?
Mm-hmm.
Even when people go, well, how do you not eat meat? You need protein. And I'm just like, why do they say that? Protein's in everything. It's a whole food. When you eat the whole food, you're getting the soluble and the non-soluble fiber. You're getting the vitamins and minerals and nutrients and the prebiotics and all that that's in there. You're getting the proteins. Now, some say, well, it doesn't have that many high proteins. Well, yeah. But if you're having a combination of all of them, then you have all the proteins because you got the protein from that one and that one and that one and that one, right?
Right.
And if you get quinoa's got high protein in it. You got nuts and seeds, they have protein in it. You got beans, you got all these different things and legumes that you can actually get that in there. And it's really not the protein that builds your muscle anyway. That's a misconception. It's the amino acids that build the muscle. So when when it comes to stuff like that, this is what I do. If you're going to have like a meal, you go, I just don't, I'm not into vegetables. Vegetables all have their own flavors. And every color has a different vitamin. If it's a red, A, if it's the orange ones, it's C's, right? So you kind of know that you need the combination of all these different colors. And the more you mix together and not cook to death, because if it's soft, you just cook out anything that's valuable.
Right.
But just for like a few minutes, right? Just 3 or 4 minutes, mix it up, put in some good oils like olive oil or avocado oil, season it up with garlic and, sea salt or Himalayan or Celtic, whichever one you prefer, and do all these different herbs and you throw them in there and you mix it. It's delicious. Like you have a nice, delicious meal. It's just that most of the time when someone makes like broccoli or cauliflower, like the specific typical vegetable, they just kind of put whatever in and that's it. Well, yeah, you're not going to find it as delicious because, you might, but not as delicious if you mixed all these different vegetables and roots and you mix in with oils and herbs and, seasonings. And it is like this meal. And then it's tasty.
Right.
And you're nice and full. And now you're full on something that's literally giving you those nutrients you need, and then of course you want to go raw as well. And that comes to, and even fruits. And when it comes to fruit, you want to make sure that if you're eating a melon, all melons are eaten by themselves. You don't mix a melon, right? And it's the way the body breaks things down. That's why sometimes people go, oh, but when I eat, I get like bloated and stuff. It's the way you're mixing the food. So when you learn how to mix foods, if you go melons, if I eat watermelon and cantaloupe or any of those, I eat it by itself. I don't mix it with any other fruit. And then you wait an hour or whatever, you can eat whatever else. When it comes to berries, you can mix all the berries together, add a little honey on top of it. And there's your dessert. You can do things with like smoothies. You can add, and I always say even I sometimes like don't have time and I go and I get a thing of almond milk, organic, non-GMO. It's not the same as when you get the almonds and you soak them for 4 to 8 hours and you take off the skin and you blend it with water, some spring water. Once you do that, it's milky and it's way more delicious and creamier. So I always say if you're going to make a smoothie, try to make your almonds fresh, your almond milk, and then add, sweeten it with your either honey or, again, always organic, non-GMO. I do also, is it the raw agave? I say raw because if it's not raw, the agave, it's already been processed. It's probably not going to be good for you. But if it's raw, if you go, oh, raw, agave is not good for you. Yes, it is. It came from nature. Stop it.
Right.
So, you can sweeten things with that, like when I do with smoothies, and then you add your bananas or whatever fruit you like and mix them together. It's really tasty. So now each time you're drinking these delicious desserts or you're eating these delicious meals, you're mixing all these different herbs and stuff together to give you all the compounds that your body needs. And that's how you can stay healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you've learned like a whole new way of living, eating, nourishing your body. When was your cancer? What year was it that you were done with treatment and feeling back to yourself?
So I was diagnosed in 2010. I was done with it in 2012 in September.
Okay.
2012. So
yeah. So over a decade now of learning to eat this way and nourish your body this way. And
oh yeah. Yeah, in fact, I even make my own ice cream with just 3 ingredients. and I found it on a thing. And you can find, like, you can go online, you can find a lot of like really healthy stuff.
Hmm.
And all I got was like, like a can of non-GMO organic coconut cream, right? You mix that with whatever, you know, like I did raspberry last time, and the one before that I did strawberries. And so I get the fresh organic, clean them all out, blend it all together, and then sweeten it with raw agave. Put it in the refrigerator, and about 2 or 3 hours later, your ice cream's done. And it's just,
Hmm.
and it's so delicious. It tastes way better than the junk that's at the stores. Way
Yeah.
better.
It sounds
And
fun to
you're
come to
eating
your
something
house
that's
and
healthy.
sample everything. Um, I wanted to ask you too. So I have your book. We got that from Journey to Option C, or your Journey
Yes,
to Option C. So maybe you can explain what was option A and B. So what is
Sure.
option C?
Okay, so we learned through my journey that there were three options that people take. So option A is the typical one that everybody just goes, sees a doctor, gets their diagnosis, and the doctor will say, okay, do this, and then they just do it. Blind
Right.
to it, not like, hey, so what will it, no questions asked. The doctor said it, they got that white coat, you know, even though they're practicing medicine, he's going to practice on me and he knows what he's doing. And that's option A. Option A questions nothing, they just do what they're told. Option B people are people that go, you know what, I lived a long life, or it's God's will, or they're just not going to change anything. Okay, I got this, and I'm just going to live my life and not going to change a thing. I'm not going to stop living. And then they just, things get worse because they're not changing anything that caused it in the first place, and then they die. And then option C people are those that go, why did I get this? What's going on? And then they start researching, they start figuring out what can I do to fix that? What caused that? Because we're
Mhm.
always looking at the symptoms and we never look at the reason. But when you start looking, option C people start looking what caused it? How do I correct that? And then correct it. And then they also, option C people look for others that have done it. And so
Right.
it's in the research. You're going, okay, I heard so and so did this, and so there's, in fact, I got a guy who had or has pancreatic cancer, right? And so things have gotten worse for him, and he reached out, and I've been working with him, and he continually is improving, and chose to go like, I'll see the doctor to check things, but I'm doing this. He's gotten so good that other people are now reaching out to him that have cancer and saying, "What are you doing?" And like, you're not seeing a
Right.
doctor, but you're getting better. You look better. Like they're seeing the improvement and the healing, and they want some of that because what they're doing, they're actually getting worse. And so they're like, "Well, I'm getting worse, and you're getting better. What is it?" And he reached out and said, "Hey, I want to do what you do. Like I have all these people that are now reaching out, and I want to help them." And I'm like, all right, let me guide you to help them, and so that way, so he's, and it's in that's option C. Option C people look to help to see what's going to make them better, and then when people show up, then they give. So it's helping others and
Yeah.
yourself and to get better, and that's what option C is.
Do you get a lot of pushback from people? Because I know, I know personally know people have had cancer and they've gone the traditional route and been healed, and they're going to rave about, the medical advances, the doctors. Do you get pushback there? And what's your
Oh my
comment
gosh,
to
yeah,
that if you do?
yeah. It's interesting because a lot of people who said, "Well, I did chemotherapy and I'm fine," and this is why I say educate yourself.
Yeah.
The reason why they do the whole people are fine is that they have this 5-year mark because they found that in the 15-year mark, by the 15, like 97% of the people with the treatments are dead. They got cancer back,
Mm.
they couldn't, it just resisted, right? Within the 15 years, they're worse. You got the 3% that despite the damage, it could be because of their diet change, their lifestyle change, who knows? That 3% say 15 years later, they're still alive and fine. It's the 97% who are dead in that 15-year mark. So usually they're like, I'm fine. It's only been 5 or 6 years. What they don't tell you is I'm on this medication and that medication. My heart's got damaged. My bone is deteriorated. I got arthritis now. I have autoimmune disease. They got all these other side effects from those treatments that they're saying they're fine from. And I have that many pills that I take, the pharmaceutical. Zero, zilt. I take no medication from pharmaceuticals. I don't have arthritis. I don't have a heart issue. I don't have, you name it, you can go. No, I have none of that. I take no medication. I feel more healthy now than when I was a teenager.
Wow.
I feel healthier now at my age. When I look at that, I'm like, I'm a grandmother. I delivered my grandson 3 years ago because I learned all these things and I'm constantly learning. People are saying, well, I feel great, but they're popping pills. I have a sister, she's fought cancer 2-3 times, because so many years later, hey, look, it came back. I don't have that problem, but she's also on heart medication because it caused damage to her heart. She has bone issues. She has, it affects the mind. So there's all these things she has that I don't have. So when they said, I did this and I'm fine, are you?
Mm-hmm.
Are you really? Like, are you on zero medications? Are you zero like if someone is around you and gets sick, are you dying from illness? Or are you like, didn't affect me at all?
Right.
That's the difference. So they may say they're fine, but a lot of times we get used to feeling sick. We get used to having those aches and pains, and then we call it age, and we ignore, the other side of it. And it's like, because I know people that they're like in 70s and 80s, no medication, eat very healthy, and never got sick. They're fine.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. You can say you're fine, but there's a chance. There's a really, really high chance that you're on medication. And you do have these aches and pains, and you do have that little issue now. I mean, I've met people that have now kidney issues because of it. That they have to get kidney dialysis. I know people that have liver issues because it got destroyed. I know people that had to get transplants because I don't have transplants. I have just my stuff. There's nobody's thing. Only my organs are in my body, no artificial nothing. So my comeback to that is, I'm glad you're still alive. Change your diet. Look at what you're eating. Get in those high supplements, because you can't be promised that tomorrow. Because if you look at even the American Cancer Society, these side effects of chemotherapy and radiation is more cancer. So you need to start doing something so you can end up being one of those 3%.
Yeah. I think you touched on it too, because, I align with everything that you're saying from a personal standpoint, what I witnessed, but do your research, and be led with what's right for you, because there's also probably a component there about how you think about things. You from the start, you knew, even as the doctors were telling you things like, this isn't right for me, and this isn't where's God's leading me. Other people might be like, my whole faith is in the whole medical system. And I think that goes somewhere too, where you have your faith and what you really believe, it might give you a different result. But at the end of the day, if we get back to nature and we get back to the world that God has designed for us, I mean, all of the answers are here within it. And if we can get it at its most natural state, it makes sense.
Oh, yeah. We should always be building ourselves instead of knocking ourselves down. Yeah.
I wanted you to share too, if you have just a few more minutes, the story about your daughter. I mean, I just learned about that testimony too. And I think that was pretty incredible.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So my daughter in 2014, by now I've learned everything about how the body heals. Not everything, but I understood that everything is curable, it's healable. She ended up with a severe head injury where all her white matter was gone. So her injury caused everything to go bad. And so then when it went downhill, she was in a coma. They were keeping her alive on machines. And I was told by the doctor, all her white matter's gone. Like, chances are she's not going to make it. And then he started explaining to me That white matter is what, is what tells the lungs to pump, the arms to move, right? So if that's gone, their lungs and heart don't know to do this because it's not connecting. And so they had her on these machines and said, we'll keep her alive till you get here. And I understood that everything was fixable. So I immediately started praying. And I cried out to God and said, look, you showed me that everything was fixable. I can't lose my daughter. What is it that she needs that's going to fix this? And it was in that moment that instantly was like, get online. I started getting online, what fixes the mind. And then I started sharing it on social media, what's going on. And everybody understood where I stepped was, like, what fixes it? So they started doing research for me too. A friend of mine sent me a thing on, how omega-3 high doses actually fixes the brain. And I'm looking at that and I'm going, and so we're finding all these things. And then he sends me a video of a kid who had brain damage, and they gave him high doses of fish oil in his feeding tube, and how it fixed it. I mean, it wasn't like that same day, but it fixed it.
Right.
So I reached out to the head doctor and said, this is what I want to do. And so, of course, he was like, well, 3 grams is pretty high. I said, oh, no. We're going to give her 10 grams twice a day. She needs 20 grams in her feeding tube of fish oil. And so, because it can cause bleeding, it's like, this is what we're going to give her. And so I went out there, I flew out. I had a fight with a lot of doctors. I didn't care. I wasn't giving up. And when they were giving her stuff, I said, I don't want her taking that. I don't want her with that. That's going to affect her brain. And so I'm like, boom, 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 and taking them out. And so they were just like, this woman's sick of control. And so I said, the only thing she needs is fish oil. So we got her the fish oil. Within 8 days, she woke up. She did wake up at a vegetated state. So she had like one eye this way, the other one going that way. Nothing, like it's just like what they call doll eyes. So nothing was working yet. I didn't care. They tried to stop it. And I was like, got on them about it and how it was going to cost someone that was in the political thing that I was going to shut them down. They gave it to her, like I said. So they brought it back and started giving it to her. By the end of the month, she was like, her eyes would follow you. She couldn't speak yet. And so by the second month, she was starting to chew things. By the third month, she spoke. By the end of the third month, she was getting treatments to walk because her brain still wasn't like registering. So she was in a wheelchair. So she went from a wheelchair. I still kept giving her the 20 grams, by the way, the whole time. And this was daily. Right? It was like, oh my God, it's like, I did it daily. And she went from wheelchair to walker to cane to none. And she's the one that I delivered my grandson with.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. It just shows you that if you just kind of listen to that voice inside and you follow it and you adhere to it, where it can take you. And, even from my experience, we did that to some degree too. I can't speak completely on behalf of my sister, but there's no regrets in that, really. You just, when you follow that knowing inside of yourself, it opens up so much possibility, really. And I love what you're doing. Where can people follow you and learn more about what you're doing, stay in touch with you or with what the things that you have coming in the near future will be?
Yeah, well, they can follow me on, on Instagram, which is Lourdes Lavoy. Right, so it's Lourd as in David US, and then Lavoy Lavoy like yo-yo. And it's same. You can find me as well in that name on Facebook. I had to recreate a new one because they took me down from there. But and then the Create Option C group, which is also on Facebook, and then they can actually go to createoptionc.com, which is my website, and that's where I have recipes on there, videos from our podcast, just a plethora of information there.
Great. That's great. Do you still get any connections with the God messengers or that other realm, or was that a one-time thing, but maybe sense the presence from time to time?
No, I still get that, I pray every morning to our Heavenly Father, every morning, every night. I pray for others. And I do get messages still to this day when it's, it could be for someone that needs that message or something that I need to know that's going to be coming up or something. And yeah, so that communication is still open, which is nice.
Still flowing. And what would be your biggest takeaway? People listening, people going through what you did, what's the message of advice that you have?
I would say educate yourself in everything. And when I say educate, I don't mean, well, the doctor told me this and that's your education. I mean, you do the work. You go looking to find what other people have done this naturally. What can I do to build my body up? What can I do to prevent things? And I always say, it's not wait till something happens, prevent, right? And for all, even the atheist, for all, you got nothing to lose to close your eyes and put yourself in that space and pray to the Heavenly Father. There's nothing to lose. You're not going to lose your soul over it. But pray and ask for those doors to be open and for your understanding to be, to be widened so that you start understanding and seeing and for that veil to be lifted. And I can promise you it will.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for your willingness to share your story, your incredible story. And I love your passion, and obviously you had the passion in your earlier career with the acting, and you can see how that's all tying together with what you're doing now and how it carried over into the medical field. And I'm really grateful to know you and to have been following you and all that you have to teach. So thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. And I'll put links below so that if anybody wants to go directly to those links, that they'll have them there.